Hello and welcome to the Healthy Living Doesn't Have to Suck podcast. My name is Melissa Allen, and I'm a double board certified lifestyle medicine coach who's dedicated to helping people drop the struggle around creating a healthy lifestyle that lasts. Join me for solo episodes and casual conversations with guest experts in the industry to discuss creating mindset and behavior changes that help you say hello to healthy living made easy, enjoyable, and empowering. Hello, changemakers! I wanted to pop on and do a really quick introduction before we dive into this episode to let you know that my group coaching membership, the Changemaker Collective, is now open for enrollment through the end of March. So if you have some behaviors that you would like to change, this is probably going to be the place for you. We meet twice a month and we do a beginning of the month goal setting call, and then we do a mid-month check-in. And between that, we have a private group chat for support where we pop in, share our wins, help support each other through challenges and all of that good stuff. And this year I have a couple guest speakers lined up that I'm so excited to share with my members. So I wanted to at least come on and let you know, since it's limited time, that enrollment is open. I won't be opening the membership again until later this year. So if you've been looking for a solution to help provide you the accountability and support and motivation that you need to achieve your health behavior change goals, then I would love to have you join us in the Changemaker Collective. So it's $55 a month or $600 for the year, which gets you a month free. I think that's pretty cool. You can find out more at healthylivingdoesn'thavetosuck.com/coaching. Maybe the membership isn't the right fit for you. I am going to be taking on limited number of one-on-one clients, as well as developing a group coaching closed program. So it's going to be either 6 to 12 weeks that goes along with the book, Healthy Living Doesn't Have to Suck. So it's going to be kind of like a working book club where we're going to go through the information together. And then you get chances to join me on live calls, ask questions, set goals, all that good stuff. So keep an eye out for that information coming soon. But for now, if you're looking for ongoing support, the membership is such a great place to get the support and the resources that you need to succeed. Okay, with all of that being said, I cannot wait to share Dr. Lauren Hodges with you in this episode today to share about her book, Less Stress and More Calm. So let's just get right to it, shall we? All right, Changemakers, welcome back for another episode. We've got a fabulous guest joining us today. Dr. Lauren Hodges is going to share a little bit more about how we can stress less and find more calm in our lives. So I am so excited to have her here joining us today. Dr. Hodges, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, you and I kind of crossed paths a few years ago at a physician wellness event, and we just kind of started chatting, and I was able to connect with you on social since then and just watch all of the amazing things that you've done with writing your book that's coming out soon and all the things that you do with your company. So can you share with the listeners a little bit more about your background and story so they can get to know you too?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, I forgot about that event. I'm so glad you reminded me
Yeah,
of that. Yeah. Wow.
it was a long time ago.
I feel like ages ago. It was like pre-COVID, right? So, yeah.
Sure was.
So, gosh, I started in the field of fitness and I've been in this space of what I would consider human performance going on 17 years now, I think. So, I actually
Wow.
started as kind of a consultant or freelance, and I did that for a long time. And I have this, I don't know, two different areas of expertise: human performance sciences, which is all things helping us show up at our best, like nutrition and exercise and sleep and stress and all of the things. And then the other area of expertise is learning sciences, and so that was sort of my formal
Mm,
academic training. And so I merged the two and I was a freelance for a long time. And what I was doing was consulting with companies, either speaking with them, doing workshops, keynotes, or I was building learning experiences in that space for companies much bigger than me who are the global leaders in the areas of human performance and well-being. Companies like Johnson and Johnson and Thrive Global and Accenture, and even now today, I
Mhm.
still consult with Estee Lauder companies. They're actually quite amazing in how they support their employee well-being and just building courses for them. And then in 2019, I decided to start a company called Performance on Purpose. And we're, again, a human performance training and coaching company. We do programs, we do coaching, we do on demand digital content and all of those things. And most recently, as we've chatted about on social media a little bit, I've been undertaking the journey of writing a book, which has been stressful in good and bad ways, right? And
Yep.
that it is finally being released April 2nd. And it is, like you said, on less stress and more calm, the science behind stress personalities, which I'm sure we're going to unpack a little bit here.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. And yeah, I was thinking about that. I was like, I could have used this book when I was writing my book because it was such a stressful process.
Yeah,
And
talk
now I'm
about
in the midst
practicing
of
what you
wedding
preach.
planning.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
exactly. Yeah, the whole wedding planning thing has been a whole other level of stress that I was like, "Oh my gosh." So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll
And
still need it cuz
good stress is
yeah.
still stress, right? We were just talking about this. So, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much for kind of sharing a little bit about yourself with our listeners. And you've touched on what you're passionate about sharing with people. And it's how, the ways that we live can influence not just our health and well being, but also optimizing our performance too. So, can you share with us a little bit about what you wish people knew when it comes to like optimizing your performance through your habits?
Sure. So, just for a quick definition of performance, I think we get a little bit tripped up sometimes on performance being how effective we are at work, right? Like those tactical measures of performance.
Mm,
And the way that we define it is your ability to show up at your best, personally, professionally, that ideal vision of yourself. Like, what does that look like? And how aligned are your daily decisions and rituals and behaviors and perspective and mindset aligned with that? And we know, all you and I and people in our space, that when we are performing at our best personally, it translates very easily to more effective leadership and higher performance at our jobs, even in sustained high demand, high pressure environments. Like we can
mhm.
do that more effectively. So, what do I wish people knew? A couple of things. I think probably for our purpose in our conversation, I wish that people knew that it is not the demands that we face that are the problem. And it's not the stress that we face.
Mm,
It's our ability to manage them, our capacity to manage them, the way that we look at them, our perspective on them. Those are the greater influences on how we receive and experience demands and stressors in our world. For example, I was recording a
right.
podcast last week, and as I just mentioned to you, my dogs are like barking in the background, and this was another person, and I said, "I'm so sorry," and he said, "Gotcha, it doesn't matter. Like this is human, right? We're work from home. This is a real
Yes.
life. There's a mailman came to the door." And I looked at
Yep.
that very differently than he did, and it was the same demand on both of us that it was
Mhm.
interrupting our podcast recording. So I mean, it's a silly example, but I wish that more people would stop looking at how to reduce stress in our lives and start thinking in more of an abundance mindset of how do I expand capacity to manage it all and meet it all.
Oh, that's so good. And because it truly is about how we perceive what's happening to us, right? It just like in that example you gave, you had two different perspectives that created two very different experiences.
Hmm.
And I love that because it helps us to feel a little bit more empowered around, the things that do happen in our lives that we don't have control
Hmm.
over because stress is
Man,
inevitable. And I would love to hear your take on kind of like this good versus evil stress that we tend to face. People tend to villainize stress when in reality it can actually help support us, right?
absolutely. So I'll touch on one quick thought before we talk about that. And that is just even
Yeah.
as us individually, it's not how you experience stress versus me or a stressful
Mm,
experience. It's even us day to day, right? So giving yourself the grace
yeah.
that there are days when we have higher or lower capacity to manage things. And, you know, I mean, we all know what that looks like. For my husband in finance, budget season, he's a little less tolerable of, the
Oh
stressors at
boy.
home, of course. And
Sure.
for me, when I'm traveling, I'm a little less tolerable of not having enough sleep. I just I don't perform as well. So I have to then, or hard exercise, I have to prioritize that. So anyway, even day to day within ourselves, what we think we can handle, I'm air quoting for those listening to this, is very
Yep.
different based on all of the other variables that we're managing during that time. And, anyway, I just,
That's such a great point.
I want to put that out there because I feel like sometimes I'd say, oh, we experience stress differently, and it's not a fixed variable even in our own individual lives.
Right.
But I'm
So
sorry,
good.
I lost train of thought there. What was the question?
No, no, that was such a great tangent to go off of though, because it truly is like we don't experience the same
Yeah.
things every day, and the things that cause us stress one day might not cause us stress on another day. So, like you said,
Yes.
it's about that capacity to handle it. So,
Which is
I
in
love that you went
flux.
on that
Yeah,
tangent.
sorry. And I do
Yes,
remember the
yes,
question. We were talking about good stress and bad stress. Yeah, sorry about that.
right, yes.
Yeah.
No,
So
no, you're good.
yeah, from a science perspective, stress is neither good nor bad, right? It is neutral. It
Mhm.
is just a direct or perceived threat to our environment, right? It's biological, it's
Yeah.
psychological, it's physiological, and it's just our reaction to what we perceive as a threat to our environment.
Mm,
Distress is stress that exceeds our capacity, right? Either we don't feel in control of it, or it's cumulative, like chronic stress, or it is an acute stressor. That's not a good acute stressor, like a car pulling out in front of you, or an unexpected health issue within the family, or an unexpected bill. Eustress is stress, eustress is stress that produces growth. So, you this gets into semantics with the way that you look at a situation. You can decide, is this
sure.
distress or eustress? You can even shift with your mindset a little bit to a degree how you perceive things. And you can
Mm,
say, could this be used as opportunity for growth? And you can shift that very thing in the moment and flex and address your emotions and how you're feeling. And then ask, like, how would this feel if I was looking at this from a growth perspective? But knowing that even all stress can produce growth, even the tough stuff. And the best
mm,
analogy I always hear is exercise, right? I mean, it's quite literally stress on the
yep.
body, and it does produce growth. And it's harder, I think, for us to visualize mental and emotional stress doing that. But the question I usually ask people, and I would ask your audience, is when you look back at the hardest things you've ever been through, they are usually the things that you learn the most lessons from. That's where you gain your
Mm,
wisdom. And so that's a
yep.
great example of how stress, first of all, how stress is not the problem, right? It's how we
Yeah.
manage it in the interim, but also that it can definitely produce growth. I also want to nod to the listeners who are thinking to themselves, not everything can be reperceived as stress that produces growth. And that is, yes, you're so right about that. Some things just suck, and they're
Right.
hard and they're awful and they shouldn't be happening. And so I want to nod to that too. There's that type of stress in our lives. And we're not even going to get into the ideas of around trauma
Yes.
and all of those things. That's not the topic, but I want to nod to
Yep.
everyone's experience of stress while we're having this conversation.
Mhm. Yeah, because I think that's something a lot of people might catch themselves in comparison at times where they're like, oh my gosh, well, I'm really stressed out about this, but so and so doesn't seem to be bothered by it. Or even when it comes to trauma, it's like
Mhm.
both of you could be in a car accident and one person could walk away totally unfazed and the other person could walk away and possibly develop something like post traumatic stress disorder.
Mhm.
So it's really, like you said, just about that experience, that subjective experience, and then being able to recognize those moments where we might be able to kind of catch ourselves in the moment to say, oof, okay, this is a lot.
Mhm.
Is there something? Is there anything that I can kind of take away from this at the time? And
Mhm.
sometimes there isn't, but I think a lot of times we're not looking for that, so we're not going to find it. I
Mhm.
love that you shared that as a question though.
Yeah, and being at peace with the fact that it just, sometimes it's just really hard, and there's no amount of reframing that can fix some situations. And I do think in our field tend to oversimplify those conversations. Just reframe it. Just think positive. Here's an affirmation or do a gratitude list. I'm not knocking any of those things. I do them all. It's just that sometimes they're not
Oh,
enough.
same.
So, just owning and
Mhm.
recognizing that, and even day to day, like, I keep going back to that because we have to the stress is just constant, and well-being is flux, and mental health is always in flux, and we just have to be constantly taking those self-reflective moments of, how am I showing up today, and what do I need today, most importantly.
Yeah. And the fact that stress does serve a purpose in our lives, and it
Hmm.
it can help us perform, and it does keep us safe. And so that's why I always, one of my biggest pet peeves is when I see those like stress-free me challenges
Yeah.
going around online. I'm like, "No. First of all, that's totally unattainable.
Yeah.
Second, you want some stress in your life."
Sure. I mean, gosh, you're going up for a promotion or you're about to accomplish, for example, my two boys, our family did the Savage race this last weekend. And
Oh,
yeah, that's
nice.
why I'm actually hiding my arms because they're like all scratched up and
Okay.
stuff. But it was good stress, right? Like it was really challenging for the boys. They're 13 and 15, and for a lot of people in our group. And I had done one, so it wasn't as daunting for me. It was still hard as
Sure.
hell, but it was
Yeah.
just daunting
Oh, yeah.
for a lot of people. And that brings such strength and growth. So yeah, there's no. I heard great advice once that, in fact, I think I read it in the book What Happened to You by Bruce Perry, I believe, and Oprah. It's about a book on trauma and early childhood. And he
Oh,
said something to the effect of your brain is never working against you. Like it's always trying to keep you safe. And sometimes
yeah.
to the detriment of our performance or whatever. But
Yep.
nonetheless, stress is never something that is trying to work against us. I do believe that when it becomes chronic and cumulative and we stop feeling like we're in control of it, that's where the negative impact of stress can take hold when it becomes this sort of systemic part of our life. And we do very much have control over how much stress we have in our lives and how we manage that for sure. And especially recognizing when it's not working for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And during those times where either you find yourself or maybe you're working with your clients that find themselves in kind of that space of feeling stuck just with whatever stress they've been handed and feeling maybe overwhelmed in trying to manage it, what are some of the things that our listeners can kind of ask themselves to maybe walk themselves through feeling more empowered around these stressors?
Mm. When you're feeling stuck, when you feel like there's some sort of intervention that you need, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, so just to feel, I guess, even boosting confidence around learning how to manage their stress.
Gotcha. Yeah. So part of the crux of the book is that we are all very uniquely wired to experience stress in very different ways. And when we don't have awareness of how we're showing up, what those patterns or defaults are for us, it's really hard to take action, right?
Oh, yeah.
Stress is a really big, heavy word with a lot of weight in it in our society. And so when we say, I'm feeling stressed, that's not a very specific experience. And so
Yeah.
when we start to get really self aware of the patterns of thought, emotion, behavior, what are those places that I go to first and most often, then we can really start asking ourselves what we need. Couple of
Mm.
examples. That's always where I recommend my clients start. That's actually the reason I wrote this book is I felt so strongly about the science behind stress personalities and how much it has
Yes.
had an impact in my clients' lives and in my life. I thought, it's a good idea to get this out on paper officially.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
just a couple of examples of what I mean by that. So my husband, he's gonna hear so many times of me. It's in the book too. Poor guy. Like he's like his stress personality is blasted publicly. But there's fight, flight, freeze, appease, right? And
Mm.
I'm more of a runner. So I call it the runner, the person who is flight based. I like to procrastinate, push off, avoid. I don't like conflict or confrontation. I need
Ooh.
space, in other words, between me and what's bringing me stress. I'm not very quick
Mhm.
on my feet. I can't find my words, when I'm feeling flustered. And so a little bit of pause. My husband is a worrier. They don't run from a threat. They don't run toward it either, like a fighter might. They're running really fast, but they're in one place, like they're spinning on a hamster wheel. those are like, yeah, those are like the analytical stuck on a hamster, just like constant like rumination or anticipation or whatever it is. Warriors are just, they
Right.
know they're warriors. So if I don't have that awareness in me that I'm feeling a certain way and this is why I'm behaving a certain way, and now I'm gonna kind of getting him to build that awareness for himself. What he wants is to lean in and talk. He wants information. He wants to get it all out. He wants to talk through, and I need a little space. And so that awareness really
Yeah.
helps both of us when we're feeling overwhelmed, stressed, dealing with a conflict or crisis together. And what he needs is very different than what I need. He needs connection and talking through and details and lists, and I might need lists, but I first thing I need is just a moment, right? Yeah, so I just that's a hope for me with this book and your audience especially is, you know, can you build that awareness? That's really the first place you want to start is what are those persistent thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that I'm experiencing? Where's my
Yeah.
default? We can have a wide range of emotions in a matter of
Oh, yeah.
minutes, right? But where do I
Mhm.
tend to go first and most often? And that's a really good place to start.
That's awesome because even as you were giving those examples, I was hearing like a little bit of myself in both of those.
Mm.
And so is it strictly like you fall into one category of a stress personality, or do you find that there's like a dominant one with like maybe some sub personalities?
Yeah. Yo, definitely. There's not a boxing in. I don't like it would be super hypocritical if I was stressing people out trying to box them into one space. No, there's
Right.
definitely
This is your label.
yeah, there's definitely 2 to 3 maybe predominant experiences. I don't even I think, the whole idea is based on this concept of neuroplasticity, the behaviors, the
Yeah.
thought patterns, the emotional patterns that we forge from childhood and past stressful experiences on tends to inform our more persistent neural pathways in these areas.
Mm,
So knowing that also, and there are this could be context dependent. So how I experience a stressor in a work environment versus a
mm,
home with a certain amount group of people, people I know really well versus not so much. We could have different kind of stress personalities. And to add to that,
yeah.
we do tend to go to a certain place first and most often. So when you sit there and you're journaling about these things over the next few weeks, like I recommend to people get a note section on your phone and just once a week, just pop in there and go,
Mm,
here's some stressful experiences. Here are the thoughts, here are the emotions, here are the behaviors. A lot of times you can start to narrow down those patterns and that can be really helpful to sort of building that awareness. So you might see yourself in both and maybe it's even the intensity of the stressor. And I've had a lot of people say even like, well, I avoid things at first, but then I start to really worry about them. That's great. Then for my husband,
yeah.
he doesn't tend to avoid anything. He just sort of leans in and tries to tackle, and it's part of who he is professionally and personally. But he really likes connection. And so I know that's something that I need to give him, and that's a give and take, of
Yeah.
course, in that relationship. But this just transcends to work experiences and relationships too, like a boss to a leader, a friend to a
Sure.
friend, that type of thing. So,
Yeah, and I think that helps us to build our own insight about not only our experience of stress, but like you were sharing, the other people in our lives. Because I think frequently we'll like jump to conclusions if we're witnessing someone acting or reacting a certain way without really taking that step back and thinking, like, huh, is this normal behavior for them? Or is this something that, is showing they're a little off and maybe they need some support? And
mhm,
then being able to recognize even extending that support could probably look a lot different for everyone, because I'm imagining that with these different stress personalities, there's probably also some recommendations or suggestions on how to work through that stress that may look different between each of them.
absolutely. Right. So, yeah, you're spot on that I think empathy is an outcome of really getting to know that, listen, the world doesn't revolve around us. Not everybody experiences stress the same way we do. They don't need the same things we do, and so even though if it's in good intention, some recommendations for helping manage stress, they're just not going to land with certain people over others. And so trying to find that one fix too can be hard as a leader, as a parent, as a friend, as a leader of people, whatever it looks like for you as part of a community. offering the right resource is important.
Mm.
You're not going to know who they are, that you can't guess someone's stress personality based on behavior,
Right. Yes.
outside behavior, unless they're like your best friend, in which case go for it. Like, you know them well.
Yeah.
But
Yep.
but what you can do is ask. That's important is, hey, how are you doing? What can I do to help? Those are the two most powerful questions you can offer
Mm.
if you're in a position where it's appropriate for you to be asking. Otherwise, assuming good intention, to your point, that this might not be who they are in their everyday life. This could be how they show up under stress. And it might outwardly look like irritation, defiance, irritability, short tempered, maybe they're curt,
Yep.
those are all fighter, for example, attributes, but the other part of this is that these are also the parts of us that make us so uniquely skilled in certain areas. And there's
Right.
these little, what I call superpowers within all of our stress personalities that are, when leveraged right, and you have awareness of them, can really be wonderful attributes. So that fighter on your team who is a little short tempered and can get a little bit maybe judgy and curt and over hyper high negative energy emotional. They
Yeah.
tend to be really values driven people. They're quick on their feet. They
Mm.
want to act right away. Those are incredible assets to a team. So helping
Yeah.
them build that awareness and then knowing how to intervene with them. And that's sort of what I unpack in each of the chapters is like, how do we help those personalities along too, once we know that that's what they are and what they need.
That's so awesome because it actually leads very nicely into kind of the next section that I wanted to address was like engaging this information in our lives. So besides everyone going and ordering your book Less Stress More Calm off of Amazon.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything will be linked in the show
Oh, I
notes.
appreciate it.
What would be some of the things that you would encourage people to do to kind of start taking those first steps in managing their stress once they've either identified their stress personality or they're just starting to build that awareness around their stress experiences?
Yeah. So I'm going to make the assumption, once they've started thinking about these things, they've started to notice the patterns, they're going, okay, look, I think maybe I'm a negative self talker. Like I just really start to attack me and that's not helpful. Or, wow, I really think
Yep.
that let's go back to the worrier. I think maybe I'm a worrier. There's another one called the distracted stress personality, which is a very cognitive experience of stress, very mental, cerebral. Like they just
Yeah.
cognitively get really fatigued. They're not emotional, they're just tired
Right.
mentally.
Yeah.
So once you have that experience, what do you do next? The next thing I would recommend is to make a list of ways that you feel you best recover from these experiences, and then start dipping your toe in the water of some other rituals and strategies that
Mm.
might be able to help. And really don't beat yourself up over the fact that some might not work.
Yeah.
There's some catch-all stress management techniques, and let's cover the big ones. Sleep, nutrition, exercise, connection with other people. Those are just,
Mhm.
doesn't matter your stress personality. Research is out there. Too much correlation to ignore. Like these are I'm
Oh
going to
yeah.
assume we all know that those are areas that we can tackle. And then from
Mhm.
there, maybe we get a little bit more specific, which I do, obviously in the book, but just for our purposes today, like starting to get a little more specific about what you need. A great example would be meditation. So, meditation is incredible,
Yes.
wonderful skill.
Mm.
Mindfulness, meditation, I'm going to kind of put them in the same bucket for now. But
Yeah.
let's take a distracted personality. Their head is full of noise, mental spaghetti, my friend says, and which I
That's so
love
great.
that image. And that's why I
Yep.
steal it. So Jill always says, mental spaghetti. If I ask that person to go do a guided meditation where someone is talking at them, it's probably not going to land very well. If I ask
Mm.
them to do an open monitor meditation where they walk outside and they feel the sunshine and they just be rather than do something, that's probably going to be really nice. And that's the same
Mm.
for me as a runner. I don't like people talking to me, telling me I don't need to be in the present moment. I'm too in the present
You
moment.
need that
I need to
space.
be not in the present moment, right? And I go into the brain
Yeah.
science of why that is. But then you look at it, a
Mm.
worrier, for example. What if you go to tell a worrier to be alone with their thoughts when they're stressed? What are they going to do? So, a guided meditation might be a really nice way to pull them back into the present moment, reconnect with the here and now, stop worrying, ruminating, anticipating the future. And that's not a universal rule for those personalities.
Yeah.
That's what I mean by really getting to know and giving yourself grace that some things might not land and some things might not land on a different day, even. Like you want an arsenal, a tool belt of strategies that might help you and what you need on a certain day. And then maybe challenge your listeners to think more broadly about the systems that they have in their day to
Mm.
integrate moments like this rather than just being reactionary and going, oh, I'm really stressed because I've been working from 9 to 3 and I haven't come up for air. Well, yeah,
Yep.
of course your stress personality is here. So maybe there's systems where they're actually building into their calendar moments to stop, breathe, stretch, eat, get some
Mm.
sunshine, pet their dog, whatever it looks like. And that's like the broader, like next level challenge is once I have the tool belt, let me look at the system as a whole and how can I readjust it a little bit.
I love that. Yes, I've always thought about it like a toolbox where it's like, which tool do I need today? Because
Yeah.
just like you shared earlier with each day looking different with our experience of stress, I've also found that each day could look different with which tools are more effective over others,
Yeah.
depending probably that I'm thinking about it, depending on which stress personality is more dominant for me that day.
Yeah, for sure. And I get a little, I like the idea, but when you hear terms like stress mastery and conquer, there's no end game here. Like there's no like
No.
certificate that we're gonna get. It says,
No.
great news, you graduated stress personalities, you have your tool belt, like
I
things are
love
gonna be
that.
better now. It's just not, it's not how it
Yeah.
works. So we don't
If
master.
only.
Yeah, right. But even then, like going back to our earlier conversation,
Yeah.
then what? When you master stress, then you never grow. You stop growing.
Yeah.
So it's,
That's so true.
yeah. I mean, it's just anyway. I could talk about this forever, but I do
Yes.
think that it's letting go of the idea that there's an end to this, and not not in a gloom and doom way. It's more like how do I feel more in control and like I can manage this and everything's going to be okay because no matter what comes my way, I have the tools. Yeah, that I think that's probably the graduation. More air quotes for the
Mm.
listeners, but the
Yeah.
graduation here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And especially thinking about meditation and mindfulness as one of the tools in the toolbox
Yeah.
because, like you said, there's so many different techniques that you could be practicing that could help bringing it back to your neuroplasticity that you plugged earlier for those who maybe don't know what that is. It's basically learning how to rewire the neural pathways in your
Hmm.
brain to say like, okay, like this is how we're going to start building these mental muscles now. And mindfulness really plays into that so it can help you get more effective at recognizing your stress, so deciding how to manage that stress, looking at it differently. So I just love that you plugged that too, because I used to be like the biggest skeptic of mindfulness. And now I'm like one of the biggest advocates of like everybody should practice.
Oh, I do. It's such a powerful skill. I think it gets a bad rap as like a not a bad rap, but I think people misperceive what it can look like. And it's not 30-minute. There she is. I knew she would do it. It's not
Yay.
it's not 30 minutes of sitting in Om in your living room. It doesn't have to be anyway. It could be
Right.
sitting at a traffic light and you're late for work.
Mhm.
And it's just noticing how your hands feel on the steering wheel. Like that's a moment of mindfulness. And they're so and to your point, building those neural pathways, it does get easier and more automatic to default to those strategies when you're feeling stressed. That's the entire point of the book is we can automate our resilience. It is a skill.
Oh my gosh. Woo, I love that whole phrase that you just shared. I think that's a great way to start wrapping up this episode because everyone now knows that they need to add to cart Less Stress, More Calm by Dr. Lauren Hodges.
You're so good at that. I
And
need to, you need to be better at it.
listen, it's been all about experimenting and finding what works best, which
Yeah.
is exactly what our listeners are going to do when they get their hands on a copy of your book and start learning their stress personalities and putting everything that we've been talking about into practice. And I feel like we've probably gathered this from the episode already, but I would just love to know your answer to how do you bring the message of healthy living doesn't have to suck into your own life or into your work.
Yeah, I thought about that when I saw your notes on that, and I think I think that I really love the term yes and I say it
Mm,
a lot and I live it now and I bring it to my clients, and I think we can have both stress and hard times and joy. We can have cake and we can, eat really healthy and vice versa. And we can
yes.
want to lose weight and we can be really happy with our bodies, and we can, really love the way we look in some clothes and really want to work on certain areas. Like it doesn't have to be, I feel like as consumers, especially here in the States, we tend to be searching for an answer, a ritual, a strategy, a pill, a diet, a plan, an anything,
Right.
even a piece of science that we might get married to, like, and it can be all of those things. And I really love your message that it doesn't have to suck. And I think one of the ways that we make healthy living suck is by trying to be really definitive about finding an answer. And it can be, we can feel two emotions at the same time. Like, I think that's the message I would like to put forward is we can have a yes and in our lives.
Oh my gosh, that is absolutely amazing, and it just fits so well. So listeners, there you go. Add that into your toolbox for healthy living doesn't have to suck. Courtesy of Dr. Lauren Hodges.
Of
But thank you so much for joining
course.
us today. Where are some of the places where listeners would be able to connect with you and learn more about your book?
Sure. Thank you. It is available for pre-order until April 2nd on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. There is currently, I don't know when this is going to air, but March 16th is the deadline for a giveaway on Goodreads. And they're doing, I think, a sign up where you can be on a list to earn 20, I say 20 free books are being given away. I
Oh,
do
okay.
have a LinkedIn Learning course on the same topic. So if you're all on LinkedIn Learning, that's a free way to get some of that information and take it. I think it's called Discover Your Stress Personality, Make It Your Superpower. And then my website, performanceonpurpose.com. It's performance-on-purpose.com. That's just our business website.
Awesome. All of that I will make sure to link in the show notes so
Thank
that way
you.
people can find you very easily. And yeah, I'm so excited for the listeners to take away so much value from this conversation that you've shared. I know I already am like looking forward to my book being delivered early April.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the
Yeah,
support.
absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And until next time, change makers, we will catch you on the flip side. I hope you all enjoyed that episode as much as I enjoyed recording it. And don't forget to grab your freebie with the wellness wheel at healthylivingdoesn'thavetosuck.com/wellness so you can get started on your changemaker journey today. As always, thanks so much for listening, Changemakers. And if you can please remember to head to your favorite podcast platform and subscribe, rate, and review. It will help this podcast reach other changemakers so they can start listening and tuning in each week. As a quick, friendly reminder, the information in these podcasts are always strictly for educational purposes only. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time.